Hi, this is Teddy, and you're listening to Eliza Orlins in New York on Two Broads Talking Politics, part of the Demcast Podcast Network.
Are you listening?
Hey everyone, this is Kelly with Two Broads Talking Politics. I am on today with a dear friend of mine who is running for Manhattan District Attorney. This is Eliza Orlins. Hi, Eliza.
Hi, Kelly. I'm so happy to talk to you today.
Yeah, I am excited. This is the first time, surprisingly, that you've been a guest on the podcast, although we've heard your voice in various segments along the way. But I'm thrilled to finally have you on the podcast.
That's true. But I'm so honored to be on finally as a guest and as a candidate. And thanks for having me.
Of course. So, Eliza, I know who you are, but not everyone does. So tell us a little bit about your background and why you've decided to run for district attorney.
Yeah, absolutely. So full name, Eliza Orlins, and I have been a public defender in Manhattan for over a decade now. I've stood side by side representing more than 3,000 people charged with crimes in New York City. And I've been fighting for the human beings who couldn't afford to hire a lawyer. And I've seen the humanity in each of these people. And we need someone as a district attorney who would do just that. And the current Manhattan DA has perpetuated this lock them up and throw away the key mentality where he sees people as inmates, bodies, felons, criminals, and it's just so dehumanizing on every level. And that the way that they operate doesn't keep us safe here in New York City. Whether someone's locked up for 3 years, 3 months, 3 weeks, or even 3 days, they're exponentially more likely to reoffend or get rearrested. And so as someone who's been a public defender fighting against our unjust, cruel criminal legal system, I finally want to bring transformational change to the Manhattan District Attorney's office.
Excellent. So tell me a little bit about what the role of a DA is. I think this is something that people don't always understand, and it's different in different places. How big a district this is. So in this case, it's Manhattan. So tell me a little bit about what this office looks like and what this role is in charge of.
Absolutely. So, I've had so many friends. It's been so interesting ever since I announced my candidacy say, I'm so excited to support you. I didn't even know that we elected our district attorney. And it's so fascinating because it is probably the most powerful elected position that we can really put someone in, because there are so few checks on that person. And the DA decides what cases get prosecuted, how they get prosecuted, what sentences are sought, whether someone has the opportunity for treatment for mental health issues or substance use disorder. That person sets policies. That's the person who tells their line assistants what to prosecute, what not to prosecute, what bail to seek, etc. And that DA makes these decisions that are so unbelievably important in standing up for the folks who are in our society, in our communities. And, the current Manhattan DA, I think, has done a disservice to all New Yorkers.
So I know a lot of your interest in doing this role and a lot of the ideas you have come out of the work you're doing as a public defender. What are some of the kinds of situations that you see as a public defender that could be helped by better policies in the DA's office?
We need a district attorney's office and, to be fair, a criminal justice system that does bring justice for all people. And it should be one that monitors and incarcerates, as few people as necessary for as little time as necessary to keep individuals and communities safe. And so, as district attorney, I would have an office policy that decriminalized poverty. Right now, people are prosecuted for nothing more than being poor. People are incarcerated for nothing more than being poor. People are held in jail detained before they've ever been convicted of anything, for nothing more than the fact that they are too poor to buy their freedom. I mean, we say that we have a presumption of innocence in this country, that you are presumed innocent until proven guilty, but we have seen that that is not in fact the case, that so many people are detained leading up to their trials, leading up to, their charges getting dismissed down the line, and they just are held in because they can't afford to pay cash bail. I mean, if you look at Harvey Weinstein, for example, he's someone who, until after he was convicted, did not spend a single night incarcerated. He was able to post $1 million bond on the day that he was arraigned. He went in, posted it, stayed out the entirety of his case between court appearances and his trial, and returned to court and, was detained post-conviction. And when I say that, it's not to say that Harvey Weinstein should have been detained leading up to a conviction. It's just that as a wealthy person, he was able to make sure that his rights were preserved, that he was presumed innocent, and that he remained at liberty during his trial. So it's really never been about anything other than what's in someone's bank account. And so, I think that one of the most important things we can do is make sure that we are putting a DA's office in place, putting a district attorney in that office who will fight for folks who are the less well off among us, who don't have $1 million bond to be able to post and don't have the collateral of a house and another house and all these things to put up. And so I think we need to fundamentally change this conversation.
So we on this podcast, of course, talk a lot about what difference it can make when there are more women in office. And I think in executive positions, especially, we've seen less progress on this front than in legislative positions. What would that mean in a place like Manhattan for there to be a woman at the top of this, the head of this office, making these kinds of changes, looking at the criminal justice system in a different way?
There has never been a woman elected to be Manhattan District Attorney. And, even though everything about our society has been changing, it's not being represented in that office. And we've seen this time and time again that women have spoken out and have said that they don't feel heard. They don't feel believed. They don't feel like they have been taken seriously as victims. And we've, most recently, I think we've seen this with regards to Dr. Haddon's case, the Columbia doctor, OBGYN, who was sexually assaulting his pregnant patients, one of whom was former presidential candidate Andrew Yang's wife, Evelyn. And she so bravely spoke out about this assault that she was subjected to by this doctor, who was basically given a sweetheart deal by the Manhattan DA's office. Cy Vance argued for leniency for this person who sexually assaulted scores of women. I think it's now up to 40 women who've come forward. And having a woman in that office, a woman who understands things, a woman who has been a victim herself of things, it makes a difference. And we need to elect women across the board, but especially in these executive positions, especially in these powerful positions where this is someone who, again, has the power to make huge changes and to kind of even the playing field for people and to make our city safer for everyone.
Obviously, a lot of us who are progressives are looking at the current presidential race and, thinking, oh, we potentially weren't able to make quite as much of a splash on the presidential nomination as we had hoped. But I'd like people to think about how progressive change can happen down ballot as well, that it doesn't have to just be the person representing the Democratic Party at the top of the ticket. Can you talk some about what that looks like? What sorts of things can happen that really do affect a huge number of people, but don't necessarily need to be done by the highest executive office in the land?
Absolutely. And I think that we have seen a lot in the last, especially the last couple of years, that down ballot races are so critical. They're so crucial. And we have seen women on the ballot in record numbers, progressive candidates on the ballot in record numbers. And we've seen them make these massive fundamental structural changes and be able to enact policies and to speak out about issues that are so crucial for affecting change on like a really grand scale, not just locally, even if it's a local race. And that's why it's so crucial that people turn out for races, and not just down ballot races in presidential years, but my election is in 2021, and in off years, we still need people to turn out and to vote in these down ballot races. And, that's how we're going to bring this, to quote someone who's familiar to us, big structural change.
So our listeners may or may not know that before you were running for Manhattan DA, you were well known in some segments of the public for having been on Survivor. So tell me a little bit about that experience, how you came to be on Survivor, and what that sort of experience sort of gives you when you're thinking about something like a run for office that is, its own kind of challenge.
Absolutely. So, I've spent far more time in front of judges, in the courtrooms, in jails, talking to clients, fighting for justice than I've spent in front of a camera. But I do have this kind of interesting out of the box background where I've appeared on 2 seasons of Survivor and a season of The Amazing Race. And, some people have a hobby of playing basketball in their spare time. And I guess I've made it a little bit of a hobby of being on a couple reality TV shows that I was a big fan of. And I think that I've been so lucky that enabled me to garner a national platform where I've been able to become a real activist and outspoken advocate for these important issues that really, really deeply matter to me. And have spent my career, focused on fighting for justice for everyone and defending those who don't necessarily have a voice, those who are marginalized, and trying to bring attention to those issues.
It's super fun. I think, not everyone has gotten to have that experience. So I think it's very cool. So another thing I want to talk to you about, because this is going to be something that people need to be increasingly thinking about, is what it's going to mean to be campaigning right now when so many people don't want to leave their house, probably shouldn't be gathering in huge numbers, what that looks like, how you shift gears and think about virtual campaigning, and, how you're sort of starting. I realize this is a very new situation for a lot of campaigns, but how you're sort of starting to think through that.
Absolutely. And it's certainly an interesting time to be a candidate. I've spent my whole life perfecting my strong handshake. And then, right as I'm getting started, they're like, oh, you really probably shouldn't shake people's hands. I'm like, what? But truly, it's the least of my worries. The thing that I'm really thinking about is this is a public health concern, but I'm thinking about all of my, all the human beings who are incarcerated in New York City and New York State, and, what protocols are in place to prevent transmission for people who are in this vulnerable place anyhow. There are scores of prisoners, thousands of people who are incarcerated, who are, older, over the age of 70, who are immunocompromised in some way. We're hearing stories that some of them have no access to soap. And it's just another way that these inhumane conditions put their lives and safety at risk. So I think that my responsibility, campaign on the back burner, the responsibility is to be speaking out about these really, really critical issues of making sure that we are taking care of these human beings who are in the custody of New York City and New York State. These are people, they're innocent people who are incarcerated right now, and who I'm sure have anxiety on a daily basis, and who face the inhumanity and disregard for basic human rights. And we have to think about the fact that these are all their loved ones. These aren't just the people who are in jail, but it's these are sons and daughters, these are mothers and fathers, these are brothers and sisters and husbands and wives, and what anxiety that must provoke in their loved ones who are unable to go visit. They're restricting visits. We have to think about their access to counsel. I think that, one of the places, one of the facilities in the city was saying that lawyers aren't going to be allowed in. They're not going to be allowing visitors. I mean, this is such an isolating, dehumanizing experience anyhow, that what I'd really love to see is, medical furlough granted and clemency granted, and the release of aging prisoners population, has a whole campaign around this anyhow. And, this is the time that we have to act to make sure that everybody is safe and healthy.
So if our listeners would like to help out your campaign, what are some ways that they can start helping?
Oh my God, I would be so grateful for the help. We are running an insurgent campaign against, an entrenched incumbent, I think, who has done some things over the years that have undermined the credibility of that office, and we really need a change. And so I would love for them to get involved. We can use all the volunteers we can get. My website is elizaorlins.com, ElizaOrlins.com, and they can find me on Twitter, Eliza Orlins, or Instagram, eOrlins. I even signed up for a TikTok account, which I need to learn how to use. I'm on every platform. This is how you're going to reach people. Like, I think that spreading the word digitally and trying, sharing and retweeting and posting and encouraging people to support both financially and with their time would be so appreciative, because everyone has to understand, like, that the power of prosecution is the paramount thing that we need to be thinking about. Like, there are people, behind bars right now who are in need of help, who are treated so unfairly, like, who we need to have someone who's going to think about how to really change this cruel, unjust criminal legal system that we have. And I'm so ready to do that. And I definitely need everyone's help.
Excellent. Is there anything else that you'd like to make sure we talk about?
No, I think that pretty much covers it. That this is the time. Like, there have been so many things over the last few years that have been so dark and have, I think, made people feel rather hopeless. But I think the one thing that has been so kind of a breath of fresh air of hope is that everyone is trending towards thinking about criminal justice reform in a real way. That even though people are kind of talking about a lot of things in a really negative way, there is this appetite for criminal justice reform. I mean, I've been talking about these issues for over like a decade and a half or more. And at first people didn't really get it, like why all I wanted to do with my life was become a public defender. And now people are like, oh, maybe the system does have a really horrible impact on people. Maybe we should think about what happens to families, how we should shape and think about policies as it comes to DA's offices. And we've started to see people electing decarceral prosecutors, people who want to think about this in a new way. We've seen it in Philadelphia and Boston and now San Francisco. And it's been really encouraging to see that people want to elect someone who comes from the standpoint of understanding the effect of the power of prosecution and using the tools that have previously been used to propagate the system to fix the system. And so, I've seen that and I've lived that. And people are now talking about ending mass incarceration in a way that I've never heard them talk about it before. And so that's so encouraging. And I've already gotten such an outpouring of support. And I'm so grateful for that, that people really do want to see a public defender get elected to be Manhattan District Attorney. So that's kind of what I would say in terms of like feeling a little bit of hope in these dark times.
I love it. Well, Eliza, thank you so much for the incredible work that you do as a public defender. Thank you for running for office. And thank you, of course, for joining me on the podcast.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. And thank you for everything you do and bringing attention to these really, really important down ballot races.
Thank you for listening to Two Broads Talking Politics, part of the Dimcast Podcast Network. Our theme song is called Are You Listening off of the album Elephant Shaped Trees by the band Immunuri, and we're using it with permission of the band. Our logo and other original artwork is by Matthew Weflin and was created for use by this podcast. You can contact us at twobroadstalkingpolitics@gmail.com or on Twitter or Facebook at twobroadstalk. You can find all of our episodes at twobroadstalkingpolitics.com or anywhere podcasts are found.